G'day, and thanks for joining me for another Humble Choice Smash or Pass for September 2025. In this series, I check out the monthly offering of the Humble Choice bundle and compare reviews, value, and compatibility of all the games on offer. My goal is to provide you with all of the information you need to decide. Will you smash the Choose Games button, or will you skip this month and hope for a better offering in the next bundle? After a few less convincing months in a row, the August bundle was one of the more easily recommended bundles we've seen in a little while. It had a great variety of games and something for just about everyone. But will we have the same quality of offerings 2 months in a row? Let's find out. WWE 2K25 is the headline act, and that will either really excite you or really put you off. I'm not one who really sees the appeal in any of these annual sports games from 2K, and wrestling is not at all my thing. At least not since playing the wrestling games on the Nintendo 64 during sleepovers back in the 90s. I'm not really sure what more there is to say about this one. It's a yearly WWE branded wrestling game. It boasts a roster of 300 wrestlers, the ability to relive historic matchups, and has a career storyline that acts like a single player campaign. Plus, of course, online multiplayer. There is an emphasis on purchasing virtual currencies and DLCs to unlock content, and my understanding is this content never carries over to the next iteration of the game. If I was at all familiar with how these annual sports games work, that probably wouldn't be a surprise, but from the outside looking in, that sounds absolutely awful. Particularly because this game is 6 months old and the base game still retails for $90 Australian, and that's on top of all the microtransactions, not considering the more expensive Deadman and Bloodline editions of the game. As a multi-platform console game, it does feature controller support as you'd expect, but Steam Deck compatibility is not verified. It also requires you to have a third-party 2K account which you can link to your Steam account to play. Reviews are mixed, sitting at 67% positive over the lifetime of the game, with many of the concerns matching my own, mostly that the game is designed to eat your cash and gives you very little in return. Positive reviews say that it does improve things overall since last year's offering, but in the end it seems like a game designed to exploit die-hard WWE fans and gamers prone to throwing too much money at microtransactions. That's a big pass for me. Destiny 2 is another controversial entry, for reasons of its own. While the game itself has had a large following for the 6 years it's been around, the developers seem to continue to find new and creative ways to alienate its audience and disrespect its players. This legacy pack includes portions of a handful of DLCs and expansions, with one caveat that certain portions of these expansions are still locked behind paywalls. The current controversy centers around the most recent updates and DLC, which apparently completely changes many systems of the game, rendering the characters and equipment that longtime players have grinded for to become almost useless. In addition to this, large chunks of previously available content have supposedly been removed, and naturally, people don't appreciate that kind of thing. I realise I've come this far and haven't even talked about the game yet, so in short, it's a free-to-play looter shooter with a whole lot of content including expansions and add-ons available as paid content. While there is no cost to entry for the base game, the additional content and bundles add up to hundreds of dollars. The game is not supported on Steam Deck. It requires BattleEye, which is a kernel-level anti-cheat, which is also a fairly unpopular decision if the response to the recent Battlefield 6 beta is anything to go by. Recent reviews have tanked to just 56% positive, with many established players running out of patience for how Bungie treats the game and its players. Just a glance at the review section will show you how many players with thousands upon thousands of hours have run out of patience and can no longer recommend the game. And this kind of game seems to be a fair time investment, and getting on board now seems like you'll be climbing onto a sinking ship. Personally, nothing I've read about this game makes me inclined to want to spend any time or money on it, so it's a pass for me. The Plucky Squire is a colourful and charming game that everybody seemed to be talking about 12 months ago. In this creative adventure, you escape from the 2D pages of a storybook and enter the 3D world, offering a unique experience as gameplay shifts between 2D and 3D perspectives, reminiscent of the 2D Mario sections that took place in Mario Odyssey. As you switch between perspectives, the game keeps things interesting by offering a wide variety of minigames and unique gameplay elements, blending a number of classic genres and references into one polished experience. Released in September 2024, the Plucky Squire still sells for around $45. It is Steam Deck verified, which is good news as this is one that seems well suited to handheld play. Lifetime reviews are currently at 82% very positive, with a slight downward trend in recent times. Overall, the reviews do tend to share the same common perspectives. Most people seem to agree that it is a well-made and charming game full of wonder and fun surprises. However, to its detriment, players seem to think that most of the gameplay elements are very shallow and bare bones, possibly a symptom of trying to include so much variety. The game is also clearly aimed for younger players, with many complaints that the difficulty is essentially non-existent, with no real challenge and a lot of hand-holding when it comes to puzzles. Overall, it's said to be a fun and charming experience, but might be a bit lacking in depth and difficulty. One I'd check out if I was to buy the bundle, but not something I'd go out of my way to play. Spellforce, Conquest of Eo is a fantasy turn-based strategy that sets you out on a journey with the goal of becoming the most powerful mage in the world. Drawing comparisons to similar games of the genre, such as the more recent Age of Wonders games, Spellforce uniquely utilises elements of the 4X genre to create a refined, asymmetric single-player experience. In hundreds of procedurally generated campaigns and with a variety of gameplay styles, you must lead your hero around the overworld map, completing quests, commanding armies, and engaging in tactical, turn-based combat, all the while discovering rare artifacts and spells to amplify your power. Released in 2023, Spellforce currently goes for around $40 Australian, and it's fully Steam Deck verified, which suits this turn-based gameplay like this perfectly. In addition to the base game, there are also additional DLCs and expansions if you're hungry for more content, although these are not included in the Humble Bundle. Lifetime reviews show this game is well received, with a lifetime of 81% very positive. Players appreciate the work put in to create a fun and engaging single-player experience, in contrast to other games in the genre that just feel like multiplayer strategy games that replace the additional player with AI. Overall, fans of the genre dating back to the classic series like Heroes of Might and Magic or Age of Wonders appreciate what the game does well to advance and modernise it. It is deep, satisfying, and complex without being overwhelming. Most of the negative reviews centre around the difficulty and the lack of depth in some gameplay elements. Some aspects of the game feel like they are left up to chance more than player skill, and choices around progression feel shallow or inconsequential. Overall, this looks like one for strategy and 4X fans, and as a huge lifetime fan of the Heroes and Age of Wonders series, I'd be very keen to give this one a go. Return to Monkey Island is the long-awaited revival of the much-loved LucasArts Monkey Island franchise. This sequel continues the story of the 90s classics in a modernised evolution of the point-and-click puzzle game genre, bringing you back to a familiar world with a lot of the same humour and wit. The writing, music, art style and charm are all very authentic to the classic experiences, thanks in part to the return of the original creator of the series, Ron Gilbert, along with writers, artists and composers who all contributed to the original games. This sequel was released in 2022 and sells for under $40 Australian on Steam. It introduces controller support and is Steam Deck verified for playing on the go. The return of the franchise has been very well received, with a lifetime 90% positive rating, indicating that it is a true return and not just a cash grab rehash. Longtime fans of the series praise the genuine revival of Monkey Island, noting that the puzzles and humour feel like they haven't missed a beat. On top of this, the modern quality of life additions make the game more accessible and playable without compromising on what made the original game special. However, the game has received some criticisms for its awkward writing, slow storyline, and some puzzles which don't necessarily follow real-world logic, which is a touchy subject for fans of the point-and-click genre as a whole. While it doesn't seem to reach the lofty standards of the originals, this entry still feels like a must-play for long-time fans. Eastern Exorcist is an action-packed 2D side-scroller with a focus on intense combat and a gripping fantasy setting. You play the role of an exorcist who sets out into a dangerous world in order to fight against evil, which takes the form of grotesque monsters and dangerous spirits. The game features a beautiful hand-drawn art style which includes gripping emotional cutscenes, and the combat is fast, impactful, and satisfying. The game was released in 2021 and currently sells for around $25. It is classified as playable on the Steam Deck, but it's not verified, so your experience may vary. The game has been very well received, with a lifetime rating of 86% positive, though there is a dramatic fall in more recent reviews. Players love the satisfying combat, which is fast, responsive, and packs a real punch thanks to the impressive animation and sound design. Gameplay is said to be challenging, without being unfair, but some find that it does become a bit too easy over time, particularly when it comes to some of the boss fights. While the game offers a skill tree to customize your playstyle, the general consensus seems to be that most of the skills are poorly balanced and there are only a few clearly preferred skills that are practical to use. In addition, the translation appears to be subpar, with much of the dialogue appearing to be nonsensical or incomplete. Overall, a fun, solid entry into the genre with a beautiful presentation and satisfying gameplay. Definitely one to try. Speed Freeks is this month's Warhammer 40k representation, just in case you missed having one in the last bundle. Surprisingly, this one is not a shooter, but is instead a kart racer. Think Mario Kart but with orcs and guns, and a larger focus on combat and blowing things up. This one features customization and some classic orky humour. Warhammer fans might appreciate the unexpected foray into a new genre. Interestingly, this one requires a third-party kernel level anti-cheat just in case that sways your decision. This game has an unusual past, starting life as a free-to-play game with a focus on monetization through microtransactions. But it later released out of early access and became a paid game, currently selling for around $30. This might have been to the detriment of the success of the game, as we'll find out when we get to the reviews. The game is not Steam Deck verified, presumably due to the aforementioned anti-cheat, so do your research if that's important to you. In terms of reviews, it is highly rated with an 86% positive rating, but it is not without its criticisms, especially recently. Mainly, the game appears to be dead, with recent reviews indicating that the majority of the player base has essentially moved on, though the inclusion in the Humble Choice bundle might breathe a little bit of life into it in the short term. The game itself is said to be solid, if a bit flawed, with satisfying combat and a nice customization that feels authentic to the Warhammer franchise. However, none of the positives seem to matter all that much when the game is said to be all but dead. It's not my kind of game to begin with, but with no active player base, there's not much appeal here. Finally, we come to Grapple Dog, a colourful 2D platformer with a cute and charming art style. Run, jump and swing through this challenging, fast-paced side-scroller, armed with your trusty grappling hook. Travelling through a handful of unique worlds, meeting new characters and gathering optional collectibles. This one also features robust accessibility options, as well as a time trial mode offering the right amount of challenge for just about everyone. Grapple Dog was released in 2022 and goes for just over $20 Australian. It is Steam Deck verified and should play smoothly on just about anything. The game is highly regarded with a lifetime 89% positive rating, however more recent reviews are less complimentary, possibly due to a number of other unique indie platformers that might do certain things a little bit better. Players love the art style and animations and praise the quality of the level design and variety of environments. However, most complaints revolve around the movement and control scheme, which can be clunky and imprecise, which is not ideal for a platformer of this nature. I'm a sucker for these retro-style platformers and pixel art, especially from indie devs with fresh and unique ideas, so despite the criticisms, I definitely want to give this one a try. Bummer. So there we have it, another month of Humble Choice is available now. But will people find this selection of games appealing? After a fantastic bundle last month, I did have high hopes, but this collection feels a little bit underwhelming. The headliners are controversial at best, and the indie game editions are solid without being outstanding. As usual, unless there's a game here that you've been dying to play, I don't feel like there is a lot of quality to draw you in. Plucky Squire and Spellforce might be the two most appealing games to me, with a special mention to Grapple Dog, which is a nice bonus, but even then. These games are not without their criticisms and they're certainly not for everyone. So what are your thoughts? Is there anything in this selection of games that really excites you, or was this one an easy one to pass? Let us know in the comments down below. And with that, we are done for another month. I hope you found this video useful in weighing up the games on offer. I'll be back with another Smash or Pass next month, and as always I'll be covering some new and upcoming games in between. So please consider subscribing and sticking around for more. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.